Hello and welcome to a little series of videos. There's 3 in the series, and it's all about a non-pushy way to sell services, essentially. It would work for other things too, but it's kind of a sort of a personal odyssey on how I've learned to sell a professional service, and I've learned the hard way. So I've learned how to do it now, and I'm going to share that with you through these 3 little videos. So stay tuned, and we'll see what we got for you. So we're going to kind of look at some of my early experiences of selling, which are not marvellous. And then we're going to talk about preparation and homework, and then some things for, ideas for creating your sales approach that you might want to sort of think about and consider. The point is it doesn't have to be like this. I think, we've all kind of got, sort of caught up in this whole, sort of Del Boy trotter thing. I've never sold a second-hand car in my life, and I'm certainly not about to start now. The point that I wanted to make with doing these 3 little short videos was to just sort of say, what, you can do it fine. You can find your own way with this. You don't have to listen to used car salesman teaching you how to sell. There's more than one way of doing it, and it's a question of finding the right formula for you, acknowledging that that's what works for you, and then just doing more of the same. And it doesn't really have to be that hard. Now, while I think it's sort of fair to say that nobody's ever going to hire me to be their sales rep, I have found a way of selling and getting the business that I want and getting the revenue that I want, without feeling ick, without the sleaze factor. And that's what I'm going to share with you now. And I take you back. I remember back in my, PR agency days, as a junior account executive, I used to have to sit down with a big long list of journalist names, and I had to call every single one of them and convince them to attend some kind of rubbish press event that was really no more than the opening of a fridge, to coin a phrase, and while no actual money was exchanging hands in that kind of transaction, I was still selling. I was still cold selling. It was my job to convince somebody to leave their office and get in a cab or get on the tube and go to somewhere in London to attend an event where for essentially something that was pretty dreadful. And this whole kind of cold and people, it was just really a horrible experience. It was kind of like, there were days where I was tempted to just sort of sneak a tartan thermos flask full of vodka to kind of sort of sip out of, to try and sort of, help me get my way through it. We were given very aggressive targets, and we had to fill in a spreadsheet with notes of every single call that we had to make and report on what the journalist said. And I was sworn at. People hung up on me. I was belittled and humiliated, and bit by bit, my soul was destroyed in the process. It was utterly hideous. Anyway, the point is then that's how I felt. That picture there, the lady with a gun to her head. Anyway, fortunately, I managed to get sufficiently good results, not great results, but just enough that allowed me to sort of climb onto the next level of the greasy career pole and pass that horrible job onto the next generation of young and green and earnest account execs. I guess it was some kind of rite of passage that everybody who wanted to get on had to go through before you were allowed to get on to the next level. But one thing I will tell you is that I swore that I would never, ever do that again once I'd got past it. And that if I set up my own business, I was never going to do it that way. A, because I hated doing it. And secondly, as a consumer, I hate being on the receiving end of it. And thirdly, I was convinced that there just had to be a better way. So when I quit my day job and took the plunge into freelance life, I decided to do it in a different way. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to work for everybody or in every situation, but if I tell you what I did, the steps that I took kept me booked solid with work for about a year. So I'm going to share this with you, and then you can see what you think of it. So the first thing that I did is that I made a list of everybody that I'd ever met during my career up until that point. Now, you've got to remember that this was just pre-LinkedIn. So this was a manual process. I didn't already, have a load of people on an electronic device that I had kept in touch with. So I just kind of went through, emptied out every drawer, every handbag, every pocket of business cards, and compiled a sort of a master list of contacts. And then I wrote a nice, jolly, friendly letter to everybody. And it was, a proper letter. I didn't do it by email. It was a proper letter, signed with a fountain pen, and I just wrote a nice jolly letter saying, just to let them know what I was doing. It was nothing salesy. I just simply sort of put a thing on the bottom thinking, if you know of anyone or hear of anyone who might need my help, perhaps you could pass on my details. It was easy peasy. And what was really interesting is I was really amazed and touched by how many people took the trouble to respond and wish me luck. And some people even took the trouble to write me a nice letter back, a proper letter, not just an email. And over the coming weeks and months, the phone started to ring. It wasn't immediate, but gradually it did. Then the next thing I did was I made a list of all of the companies who were direct competitors to the type of clients that I had been working on in the PR agency. So I tracked down the name of the marketing director, and then I wrote them a nice jolly note to say that I just started on my own and that I had valuable experience of their market, and an address book full of journalist contacts that were relevant to them, which was the killer thing, really. I had a really good contact book full of journalist names and addresses and phone numbers and direct lines that a lot of other businesses would have found valuable. So and then I just sort of said, if you ever felt the need for some PR assistance, I'd be delighted to meet with them for a chat. And that yielded some really, really good results. And I got a good dozen opportunities to meet and chat with people within a week or so of sending that out, and then real work contracts started to appear, and that really then started to snowball, and that kept me busy for a good year. So I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying it's hugely scientific, but it did work, and there are some reasons why that worked. First of all, I knew who I wanted as a client, particularly when I got to the point where I identified competitors of the previous clients that I had worked with. I did some homework, got the right names. I was aware that I was primarily selling myself and that I had a specific goal. And that was the reason that yielded some good results. So there you go. So the next little video in this, I'm going to talk about some thoughts of things that might help you sell. So let's so join me over on the next video. Thank you for listening to this bit. I hope that was it was short but sweet, I hope. And I hope you'll join me on the next video, which is the pair. Then you've got the pair then. I mean, why wouldn't you want to listen to it? So see you on the other side. Bye bye.